like Metatron's very complex. So like, there's no way that we could cover all the different aspects very quickly or in a weekend. But the 8 materializations of Metatron are based on kind of, the way to say it is, in your mind, when you're thinking of different things, there's these different avenues that you go down. One might be your health, one might be your family, one might be relationships, one might be prosperity, one might be education and knowledge and how you pursue it. Like, so basically these 8 materializations are 8 different streams of thinking that we all have. They're very universal, and to kind of go through and reboot them with like activating them, filling them with light so that they're processing more rather than just laying dormant or stagnant or based on like past experiences. And so it's a way of opening up the intuitive mind and making the logical mind a little bit more flexible, but in a way that's very specific to these 8 avenues. And so it's like what people try to do with feng shui on the bagua. They try to affect this from the outside in. This is like doing it from the inside out. And so it increases and improves the energy that you draw upon from the different directions for manifestation, but it opens up how you think about these different areas, be it your health, prosperity, and goals, bringing in helpful people and people that you collaborate with, relationships and experiencing love, all these components are all addressed. So what we have you do is you focus on something, and then we go through a process with each one. And it doesn't have to be super specific when you reflect on it, but you just think of the idea of, okay, how do I experience love in my life, or with a partner, or with friends? And then how do I address my health? How do I address the pursuit of knowledge and experience and expertise? And you're addressing these different aspects. So very different than the other Metatron classes that we've done. Very, very different.
You may have already kind of answered this, but does it play into what we've been learning?
It's yeah, like it very much ties into the effectiveness of the 3 brains. And in fact, when I was teaching the 3 brain techniques to in Astara to some places in India, the original name of the 7th class in the first series, because we have a couple, series 1, series 2, and then eventually series 3, was actually the materializations of Metatron. Like, it plays very much a role in active clairvoyance. And so we'll even be touching on, we're not using the blend for Metatron, but we're going to talk about some of the aspects of Metatron in the angelic class coming up this weekend. Part of what we're going to do is we're going to do this kind of universal process for utilizing and working with angels in a very systematic way, and unlocking the physiology so that you really can integrate it non-specific to a particular angel, and then you can work different angels within it. But also what I'm doing is providing a bit of a encyclopedia kind of different angels and why to work with them and like what you're cultivating. And it's very different than if you go to the bookstore and you pull out an angel book and Michael's about this and Raphael's about this. It's like usually those explanations are very superficial and really buried more in what people would like him to do. Like, it's not it's not really invoking the angel the way we're talking about invoking the angels. And so, I mean, you could say, be it meditation or healing or working with angels or devotional practices to a deity or something like that, there's energies and experiences that are very nice and very soothing, and then there's energies and activities that change you, like, they help you evolve, they shift you. And when we're talking about the angelic class, it's more the latter, like things that will like shift you in a direction, generate a movement or momentum of what you're working towards. Most times when we're in the logical mind is very good about past experiences and what we like and what we know and what we've studied and what we think and our viewpoints. But the logical mind, if you look at it from an energetic point of view, lacks movement. Like it's more of a state. The intuitive mind is all about movement. And when you're working with angels in the angelic realm, it's all about movement. It's not about the things that you're thinking. Like it's about the movement or momentum that gets generated. It's like what we were saying in the body mapping class. What you do is more important than what you think. And at first it sounds like, oh, like my actions are more important than my thoughts. But literally, what you do, like your actions, your emotions, your motivations, your movements are much more important than when you're sitting and reflecting or having your opinions and your processes and your past experiences and you're thinking this and thinking that. The movement is way, way, way more important than what you're thinking. Way, way, way more important. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to talk about because it's movement. It's like you can't grab onto it. Like going back even to the Metatron thing, it's about essence, it's about movement. It's not about, the issue is we think about something and we're like, yeah, I've arrived. I remember somebody was asking me, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and they were like, when you reach an enlightened state, do you just get to kick back and relax? And even there, that's reflective of like, I just want to maintain this state and have no movement, when really enlightenment is more movement than sitting in that place and just going, I can rest, I can relax, I can, it's all about the movement. The innovative mind, a mind that's successful in business, the mind that has a very good relationship with their partner, the mind that is dynamic in whatever realm that they're in, that mind engages movement more than it engages stasis or like being static. Being static means very little movement. Any of those things are more dynamic. Their activity, their emotion, they're evolving, they're expanding, they're unfolding.
Just keep talking. No.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing, but it's like, even when you have certain spiritual teachers, like you'll be listening to them. I used to have this teacher a long time ago, and like I'd sit there and listen to them, and they're talking about this movement, but they're even doing it in a way that's not about facts. They're just, the way that they talk, they kind of engage this kind of movement, and I'd be like, oh, that's amazing. That is like, oh, I had such realization when I was listening to the person. I'd go back to my friends and they'd go, what they talk about? And it was like, well, there was these like pillars and like this thing. And then like, you try to go back and say it. And it's, you're going to your past experiences, you're going back to that state where there's like no movement, and what was being taught was all about the movement. And then you try to go back and talk about it logically. I sounded like a little bit crazy, a little bit like a moron. Like it just ugh. And it's the difference between like a spiritual practice and a mystical practice. The mystical practice is all about the movement. You will learn something, but then at some point you got to put it in action. You got to put it in motion. Think of a person that goes to college, goes to university, gets all the degrees, and then they get out and they really don't do anything. They've learned something, but they haven't put it in motion. Versus a person who maybe doesn't have the degree, but had to really duke it out in the trenches, and they might not have the education, but they're way better at the motion or the movement. And usually somebody like that who has really been innovative in the things that they've done is usually more successful than the ones that went to university and then didn't really do anything for a while. Doesn't mean that people went to university aren't smart. They're very smart, but you have to really jump in and start doing something with what you learned very quickly, or stasis sets in, like little to no movement.